All right, it looks like we have Rob with us. It does look like Hillary might not be here with us today. I don't see a note from her
I
saying
just
that she
texted
was
her too and I haven't heard back, but I can take the
okay.
minutes for us.
Oh, thank you, Megan. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I also want to confirm that we have a quorum. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of us here today. Does that qualify as a quorum?
And then some.
Thank you. Awesome. Okay, and then before we get started, I just want to ask if there's any revisions to the agenda. Jeff, I did see your request to talk about I can't even
I, th
remember what it's
I
called,
think
the
we
website.
can do it over email. It's fine. Yeah, it's over that meetup,
Okay,
that Montana Geospatial meetup site that Magip is kind of indirectly part of. So
if everybody's okay with that, we'll not add it to the agenda and we'll do it via email. And then when we meet the next time, I'll be sure to incorporate it into our next agenda so that if we need to have a discussion about it, we'll have time to do that. So if there's nobody else that has any changes to the agenda today. Okay, so I'd like to pass a motion to approve the June 18, 2024 meeting minutes. Can I get a
motion for that?
thank you, Mike?
Second.
Thank you. Okay, then motion's approved. And the minutes, which are legit, are approved. And we can move on. So Rob, thanks for joining us. I just wanted to let you know Tessa's out sick today, and we think that Hillary is probably at the UC. So the first thing up on our agenda, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen if that's okay. So we can I will share my screen if I can figure out how to share my screen in Zoom. Oops. There it
You
is.
should just be able to go down to the bottom. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the only one that's green. So try this one. How's that? Are you seeing the agenda?
Yep.
Awesome. Okay, so the first thing on the agenda today is to give you an update as much as I know on the vice presidency. So as of now, the position is still vacant. Tessa set up a meeting with me and Marcia and Tessa. And then Marcia had been traveling overseas and she ended up with COVID, bless her heart. So we ended up having to cancel that meeting and we will reschedule it as soon as she's feeling better and she's actually in the country. So hopefully that'll be soon. I don't know, does anybody else have any other suggestions for the vice presidency? I think that at this point, the position with Marcia, although we haven't had a chance to confirm it, is, I don't know, we won't know until we talk. So let's just leave it at that. Any other questions or discussion you guys want to have about that?
has anyone maybe reached out to Lee Mackholtz?
I have excuse me, been chatting with Lee, and I think Eric can also agree with this, Eric Spangenberg, that Lee is on the MGAC board, and I think it would be difficult for her to be on the Magip board and then also serving on MGAC. I think that her desire is that if she's not on MGAC, she would like to come back to Maggot, but she can't do both.
Yeah.
I think it would be a bit of a conflict of interest as well. Jeff, you had also mentioned there's a person that works for the transportation department. Is it Brian?
Is it Brian Anderson?
Brian Anderson, that he had expressed an interest in being involved with Magip again?
Or was it Jason? Was it Jason Danielson or Brian?
Yeah.
Oh, it
good-
might have been Jason Danielson.
I feel like it was Jason.
Yep.
Yeah, I
That's
think you're
what I
right.
heard too.
Mhm.
I don't know Jason. Does anybody know Jason personally and feel like they could call him?
Eric does.
He wasn't on the phone and not over listening to our conversation.
I think even Brian Anderson too. So I think either one of them. I think if we approached either one of them, I think
Jason's enjoying some time off from boards for a while because he served as the technical and conference and some other things. I think right now he's just enjoying just working and taking care of and doing stuff with their kids.
yeah.
So,
This is the first time I've heard Jason being interested. I wouldn't,
so,
but yeah, I don't know.
no, I don't.
And Brian
I
has
think
been in this position before.
he's been in the
Mhm.
position before. He'll probably look to get active again later, but at this point in time, I don't think we want to have that discussion with him. So, and Lee, I think Lee has a lot of other things going on. Quite honestly, I don't know. She'd probably be willing. She probably would have been willing to take the role of being the liaison between between the council and Magip, being that person, and just me serving on just council. Because that's technically I don't have to, just because I'm the Magip, just because I'm the GIS professional representative to council doesn't necessarily mean I should also be on the Magip board of directors.
Yeah.
So, which is an appointed position from the council. So, if I'd opted to not put my name in the hat, I think Lee might have done it, but that would have made her then as the council member to Magip board.
Yeah.
So,
How about someone from either Flathead or City of Kalispell? I mean, I think there's two good candidates.
I mean,
at
yeah,
either one of
I
those.
know I don't know if Mindy would be available or if someone else up in that area.
I could talk with Mindy if you guys
Nate,
want me to.
not Nate, but who's that gentleman up there?
Okay,
Nick-
can I interrupt for just a moment?
Yeah, go for it.
Sorry, I just, so we have been in conversations with Marcia, and I hate to derail those conversations
Okay.
before we've really had a chance to sit down and talk to her, but I love all of these ideas as well. Would it be fair that Tessa and I will meet with Marcia before our next board meeting? And if we don't get a solid commitment from her, I could reach out to you all via the email and ask at that time to reach out to those people, because I don't want to say, hey, do you want to come and do this? And then fill the position and then say, oh, no, wait, we were just kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That,
what is, from last time I remember, you mentioned that Marcia was only gonna be VP and she was not gonna be anything beyond that.
we haven't had a chance to sit and talk about it, honestly, Mike. And I think that, Tessa has a relationship with her and she's been texting back and forth, but the hope was that Marcia and I could sit down and talk together so that she would have like a really clear vision of what it would be like if she took the role in the permanent position where she would move into the VP. So I don't know yet.
I would try pushing for the 3-year term, not just a single.
I absolutely
year.
agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of pointless for her to be there for 1 year and that's it.
Yeah.
But I think that
Bob?
also would mean a special election too. So we'd have to officially push something out to our members if I'm reading the bylaws correctly.
That is correct. Yeah.
Could I interrupt here for just a second?
Sure.
This whole thing, it makes me a little bit uncomfortable. It feels like we're grabbing at straws here. See, it feels like we're desperate and we're grabbing at straws. And it's really not enhancing our business. You know, we don't need a vice president in order to conduct our business currently. And I think we should move on and conduct our business. Then, you know, I think we need to understand that it's an interesting commitment, and it's different than all other commitments where you take on a vice president role and you're committing to like not only that, but then future roles as president. So I think that's a difficult ask of a person who is not familiar with the organization. So, and I think it's kind of weird for the organization to bring in somebody who's not familiar with the organization to go ahead and lead it. So, you know, these are things I think we should consider and be a little bit more strategic about how we go about this, especially since it's not something that's absolutely critical for us at the moment. So, you know, in my mind, I feel like we either change that arrangement or, you know, we come up with a better way of identifying a person who's familiar with the organization to step into a leadership role. Anyway, those are just my thoughts. It's been going fine the way it is with the role the way it is. It's always worked out. So maybe we just keep doing it, but those are just kind of some initial thoughts by hearing us fumble on this issue for the last, you know, several meetings. And yeah, to me, it seems weird that we're like looking, you know, to pull somebody off the street to come in and be a leader in the organization. Anyway, that's
Yeah,
just
I would disagree
an-
that we're pulling somebody in off the street, Rob. I think that the reason for cultivating the relationship with Marcia and asking her to serve in the vice president role is because she has a very strong relationship with the tribal community. And the commitment from Magip at the beginning of this board session is like this fiscal year and moving into fiscal year 2026 is to include the tribes. And the hope was to have a member from the tribes serve in that role. And without having somebody who has relationships in place to begin with, that will be difficult. And I do agree that it is a little bit strange to have a person that isn't familiar with Magip. But I would also argue that I am not as familiar with Magip as probably the other 8 or 9 members of this board. So I'm still pretty new. It can be learned. I don't know. But I don't disagree with you that we need to move on. This was just an update to let you know where we're at. I would be interested to know how others feel about pursuing reaching out to others in the GIS community before our next meeting.
I mean, I think we have, right? We've been doing that. So, you know, maybe at the 6-month mark of the year, we put up some advertisement about a, you know, interim election or something of that nature. You know, so we can do it in a structured way rather than in this, you know, relatively chaotic way that we were approaching it. So anyway, I'm done. That's all I needed to say. Proceed. Thank you.
I guess, Rob, I would like to pursue the conversation because it hasn't felt chaotic to me, but maybe there's something that you're seeing that I'm not.
Anyone else got any comments on the topic?
I agree with you, Rob, that we kind of need to move on and stuff, and we are kind of grasping here. I mean, we've done all the asking. I feel like we've done all the asking we possibly can. I mean, we're still continuing with the advertisements. Nobody wants to volunteer. Nobody stepped up.
Okay.
we can't just sit there and grab hands and say, hey, look, you're going to take over for us now. I mean, that's a good idea, Rob. In 6 months, look at it and maybe have a special election for just the VP, that position. That's not a bad idea. But yeah, I mean, there's no volunteers out there right now that are volunteering. And whether that's us lack of promotion of it, I don't know. I feel like we're doing a good job trying to get the voice out there saying, hey, look, we need a VP. But I just don't sense that there's people wanting to do it, or not that they're not wanting to do it, they're busy and they don't have the time.
Yeah, I mean, I reached out, I talked with somebody as well, and a person that I would feel comfortable within the role, and they said, I'm busy. I don't have time. So since all of us are committing our time currently, let's address the matter at hand.
Okay, so for now, the vice presidency vacancy update is on hold, and we will revisit it at the end of the year, at the
Well,
6-month mark.
Gail, I do think it's worth following through on your commitment with Tessa to meet with Marcia and find out more about her. And who knows, maybe she's like this magical person that will fall in love with Magip the way we all have. And, may not know what comes of that, but then maybe if that doesn't pan out, we move on. And I'd be with, I like Rob's suggestion of a special election in 6 months or so.
We
But
will
yeah,
definitely.
Everybody should be still pursuing people, I think. I mean, but I don't think it's just I don't know if we need to have an update. And if we get somebody that's really interested, then we can bring it to the board and say, hey, look, I got somebody wants to do this. Then we can move forward from there. But I think everybody should be still continually trying to find this. But as for the board itself, we probably could be moving on. And like Rob said, like Helen said that, we can look at it in 6 months.
Okay. Let's move on to the next agenda item, funding board members travel to events. This is an action item that came out of our last meeting and the meeting prior to that in May. And I think even before that, and that is the board will reach out to organization about conference waiver agreements, and a bucket item will be added in the budget. I think it's the bucket item will be added in the budget. That is definitely something that's going to need to have some action on. And then there were some of us that had been tasked with reaching out to other organizations to find out about getting on their agendas. So if you guys are okay with it, we'll pause on the bucket. Bucket item will be added to the budget until after Nate has shows us the preliminary budget for this year, and then you can see how it's been incorporated into the budget. And then we could each go through. Mike, if you wouldn't mind starting on the MAPS conference in Lewistown. Did you have an opportunity to talk to anybody about that?
Yeah, hang on a second here. I have a coworker here. She works for she's the public works director for Yellowstone County. She's also on the board for MAPS as well. I talked to her. She was interested in the idea of us swapping conferences and booths. She thought it was a good idea. I don't know if Lewistown is going to be in effect as that's coming up. I mean, it still can be. I don't know. She was going to bring it to her meeting, which hasn't happened yet to my knowledge. It'll be probably this week she's having that meeting, or next week at the latest. And she's going to bring it to them. And I believe, Gail, you also talked to somebody that's also on the board, so they're going to be talking to each other. And I feel that we'll have some kind of solid answer at that point, probably by the beginning of August.
Okay, great. So I'll give you an update on Mako. I don't actually know anybody. I went to the Mako website and looked at their site and their conference. Did have a conversation with Erin Fashaway to ask her if she knew anybody on the board that she could give me an introduction to, and talked with her about the reason for wanting to have that introduction. And Erin had said, even for the library, that that isn't an easy relationship, that it's a more expensive conference than our conference, that generally they charge for their booth space, and that having those handshake kind of deals hasn't been easy. I'm still pursuing that though, because Erin and I haven't had a chance to talk about who she would actually be introducing me to. So if you guys know anybody that's on that conference board, I'd be up for getting an introduction with you guys. But so far, the Mako conference doesn't seem like that's going to be a go, especially for this year, since it's going to be in September, because we also have our conference planning. And I think, if I remember right, it's at the early part of September, so there's not a lot of time to get involved in that. Tessa's not here today. Helen, do you want to give us an update about Urissa?
Yeah. So I reached out to Kara Utter. I think you guys all know she's been coming to the Magip conferences for a while. She's really involved with the Northern Rockies chapter of Urissa. And in fact, I even asked her, I told her she should join the Magip board, but she said she had too much on her plate. Anyways, I started this conversation with her. She said she was interested and was having a busy week, and I have an action item to follow up with her on that topic. As far as I could tell, like from wherever that went, the conference webpage, I think it's every 2 years that they do it. And I was probably I think it's the Intermountain GIS conference now, which maybe I was mistaken in thinking they had one every year, but the Northern Rockies chapter of the Urissa, and it looks like they host the Intermountain GIS conference every 2 years. So they just had one this May. The next one wouldn't be till 2026. I do still think it's worth, inviting them to have a booth and continuing that conversation. Nonetheless, I would love to see more representatives from Urissa in attendance at our conference either way. So I'll keep pursuing that. And like I said, I have a note to myself to respond to an email to Kara, like give it a few more days and then send an email and keep that conversation going. But I will keep you guys updated, and maybe we can have some kind of handshake agreement or something sometime in the near future. Kara also mentioned, I told her I was excited for this new role. She also suggested maybe we co-host some workshops or technical talks potentially with Urissa, because I believe they do pretty regularly line up just like online webinar, this or that, and they're kind of like hosting it. It might be nice to collaborate with an organization like that and be able to post a few resources for our members and links to webinars. So I'm just want to put that on the radar for you guys, and no actions on that needed now, but it's in my brain as I'm scheming up some member development ideas and providing opportunities for our membership. So
do you have to be a member of Urissa?
I am not 100% sure. It was just something that Kara she said, well, we host all these technical talks. Maybe we could do jointly host something. And I loved that idea. And so I didn't sort of take it much further, but that's a really good question, Gail. And I want to write myself a note to look into that. And then I have one more.
Hey, Helen, Urissa is also doing their salary survey now too.
I saw that. We just got the email from them. They just sent that to a couple of us at Pickett.
Right.
So that would that would certainly be interesting. But on a totally separate topic of reaching out to other organizations, a colleague of mine is on the board of a Wyoming Society of Engineers and Surveyors. And I floated the idea with him of potentially swapping a booth. I don't know if there's interest from this organization of maybe having a representative go down to Wyoming and immerse themselves a little bit more in engineering and surveying world, which I could do if we ever did get to something like that. But I just thought it was an interesting thought, and I did see in the member survey that we do have a lot of members who are looking to expand our sort of, hey, let's bring more surveyors. Like there were many comments on let's invite more organizations like MAPS and Marls and what we're working on already here. But so surveying and engineering may be some sort of adjacent fields we could cross-pollinate with.
Helen, I just am curious with the idea, when you're looking at the survey results and people are saying, hey, we should be doing these collaborations with these other organizations, is the idea that we would be having sessions like somebody would do a presentation from those organizations, or is it more come and be at our booth and tell us what you're doing?
I'm not 100% sure because I was, interpreting comments on the member development survey, but it was kind of just a general, I would say overall, my thoughts are, I think people want to have a little bit more diversity in like the content, which, there were many things like we all saw that's like, oh, more open source, or seems like it's just in every shop, or it seems like there's quite a few. It's really heavy on the government side of things, and that there were other comments like about it would be nice to see more folks from the surveying community involved, or I know we were gonna maybe push back a little summary of my deep dive into the survey, but it did, ways that people were suggesting, how can we improve? Like, what more would you like to see? More open source content? Can we, have UAS and surveying content? Those were special interest topics specifically. So that it was a takeaway that I got from it, that many people had mentioned collaboration with outside organizations, and I don't know whether that means we want folks to present or maybe even just be in attendance and hear their perspectives and learn and grow from them. I know I would like that.
I think we have to define that, us. Like, okay, we heard, and actually we've been hearing it for a long time, right? And we've been doing this back and forth with Marls for as long as we've existed, essentially. So I think we have to actually define what that means, right? In order so that we can achieve success, right? It's like just going to their conference and them to come to our conference and just standing around, that doesn't actually provide a whole lot of diversity to the event, right? So I think we have to design something, make a slot for something that we want to see. And I think, I don't know. I don't have the answers, and I'm not proposing any answers at the moment, but I think collectively we should talk about what we want, how we intend to define success in this cross-pollination sort of environment. Some potential ideas is that at like lunch, dinner, one of the times in which we gather, we have a person who's attending this conference from another organization just say a few words, right? Or, we give a presentation opportunity, right? And that those are some discrete things, and leading into this other notion of diversity of content. I think this is something else we can pay attention to. And the natural progression of our submissions, they're just, they follow the, the demographic of the membership, right? Because the state library pays for people's, membership, we have a lot of state library employees who are members. And what do we get? We get a lot of local and state government kinds of content. It's just natural. If we want other content, like I'm a natural resource person, and we suffer for natural resource content, but it doesn't just come out of thin air. You can't just throw a thing on the internet and say, submit us a presentation, right? These kinds of things have to be curated. If we want that content, we have to go out and solicit it. So I think if we want to increase diversity, we have to take steps towards that. It doesn't just happen. And we have to define to ourselves how we want that to take place. Do we just announce, hey, Tommy Two Toes is here from, X, Y, and Z engineering firm, or, do we give posters? Do we give recognition? Something of that nature. I'll stop now, but I think you get the idea, right? And
Yeah.
I think we can all contribute to that.
Yeah, thank you so much for mentioning that. And I think that's a really much needed, probably, to define our goals, what we're getting out of it, which I think all of us, we want a diversity of perspective and content, as well as attendance at our, at our conference. So I'm in total agreement with what you just said, Rob, and thank you for bringing that up.
I would like to, and I agree with you, Rob. These are really early conversations about bringing these organizations in. I would like to add that to the agenda for next month as a discussion item, where we have time as a group to talk about it, and would really love for all of you to just consider what Rob said. Like, what does that mean? If we're, and I think that in addition to add a bucket item that will be added to the budget, and also putting money into our budget means that we're committed to it, right? But we don't have indisposable funds that we can just go to every conference that we want to. So I do think that it's important for us to have a conversation about what are the most important conferences that we attend and that we promote those conversations with. And I'm like, yeah, go ahead.
I think one last thing I wanted to mention. So let's say we identify, we want Marls, maybe we want FWP, maybe we want MDT, or whatever organization we want a presentation from. You can't, with a straight face, solicit a presentation from an outside organization and then ask them to pay a registration fee. Right? So talking about budget and things like that, we might want to identify some organizations from which we would like to invite a speaker. But then we have to, inviting a speaker means you're going to give them a free registration. Or something, you know what I mean? Something of that nature. I think, Gail, that kind of comes into what you're talking about. And if we send somebody to a conference, I think we want a presentation about what they experienced at that conference. Right?
And what about, yes, I agree. I love all of this conversation, and I want to continue the discussion. I also want to be sensitive to a commitment that I've made to all of you to keep the meeting to an hour. Would everybody be okay if I put this on the agenda for the August meeting and we can lead with this, if everybody's okay with that?
That sounds great.
thumbs up, everybody agree. I see some shaking heads, but I also thank you, Nate. Okay, awesome. Okay, so thank you, everybody. I appreciate that, your responses. So we're gonna couch the conversation about this until the next meeting. And we're gonna move to the budget, and this will be the beginning of our agenda for our next meeting. I think it's important, and I do think we need to we need to define it, right? And be clear about what our expectations are and what our goals are. So, okay, having said all that, let's move to the budget. Nate, I'm gonna ask you to be up and share with us the budget so this is the 2025 fiscal year proposed budget because we haven't taken any action on it. And if you need me to, I can stop sharing, or I also put your documents into the shared drive, I think. Yeah, it might be harder for me to find than I think.
Okay, yeah, I can just share my screen if that's
Okay.
easiest.
That would be great.
Okay, is that coming up for everyone? You should be seeing the 2025 draft budget.
Yes.
Yep.
Cool. All right, so yeah, I sent this out a day or two ago, and sorry for not getting this out sooner. But yeah, just based on our conversation from the last board meeting, I think we had a few action items that we were going to discuss and kind of decide on at this meeting. And one of them was deciding if we wanted to go with the 2-year plan for wild apricot, and this would save us $144 per year. And then we were going to determine how much to budget for board travel. And from our conversation that we just had, it seems like we might not be able to come to a decision right now. And so maybe we just kind of leave that out for now, depending on what people think. And then, yeah, discuss talking about approving a CD for 6 months. And then also discussing how much we want to budget for our requests for assistance and brainstorm on ways to get students to the conference. And so I guess before we got started, are there any questions about the budget after people had a chance to look at it?
Nate, at the beginning there, you're saying that you're trying to expect similar to the 2023 conference. Why the Bozeman conference? Or were you referring to the Billings conference?
Yeah, the Bozeman conference 2023.
So why not the Billings? Are we just skipping over that one, or?
Yeah, I said 2023 conference because it's going to be in Helena. So we could anticipate a higher attendance, possibly, so.
So that was your thought, that we're gonna get a higher attendance?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on that?
No, I just wanted to confirm what your thought process was, that's all.
Okay. Great.
Thanks.
All right. Well, what do people think about purchasing a 2-year plan for wild apricot?
I think it's a good idea.
I do too.
Awesome.
It's not like we're not gonna do it, right?
Right, yeah, and we have money in savings that we can afford it, so.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
I mean, there is no other option than wild apricot, is that correct? I mean, we couldn't switch to a whole nother package. I mean, that would be a whole redo, wouldn't it?
It'd be real
No.
painful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah,
something we want to
Especially
do
after you
this
guys
year.
just went through a rebuild of the
Thank you,
website.
Megan.
If anything, I've heard other people switching to wild apricot. Like
Yeah.
they see what we're doing and they're like, oh wait.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, that's good to hear. Yeah, definitely. I agree. We should go to the 2-year plan then.
The only thing to probably keep in mind is what's gonna do to the budget next year. So I would imagine it would probably be reflected as $0 next year. So that you'd have to just keep that in mind, where you're kind of still paying for it, but it's kind of spread over a 2-year period, but you're kind of front loading that instead of, spreading it out over 2 years. So
Yeah, correct.
Well,
Good point.
nothing seems to get cheaper over time. So maybe we're doing some savings there. But I wondered, one of our other items here is like swag and stuff. Can we use wild apricot to process swag sales through the website?
Yes, you can. I mean, you can do it through wild apricot.
Yeah. So I don't know, maybe if we're doing that already, or maybe even if we use it, we use it ourselves in order to purchase or restock on some of these things. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I like the idea of, I don't know if there's somebody that we could work with that could create items that are like using the Magip logo on a case by case basis. Like, say I want to order a 2X sweatshirt for my husband, but a t-shirt for me. I could order it and we don't have like boxes of that merchandise, right? Maybe that's something that I could look into.
And similarly, instead of like having, if we give stuff away at a conference or something, I don't know, we have stuff we can
Yeah.
give it away, but like you give away a gift card essentially to the site where somebody can order something for themselves.
Yes, I love that.
I
Yeah, I
just
think-
thinking of ways we can leverage this thing that we're paying for already.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
Megan, do you know if that's already a service on the website? Is there?
I think there's a way you can set up a store, but I don't think it's like, I think we would have to put in the items. I
Okay.
will say also that wild apricot charges a fee on everything that
Mhm.
goes through them, similar
Is
to
that by
PayPal.
item? Oh, like a by item?
It's
Yeah.
it's per credit card transaction. So it's
Right.
the credit card processor at Pay charges a 2.99% on each credit card transaction.
Thanks,
Okay.
Michelle.
So just credit card transaction. So if somebody does, obviously if they pay by check or cash, there's no fee. And there is a store. I've used the store for another association and it's fine. But you do, like Megan said, you do have to set it up. You have to put your product in there. You have to put your pictures of the product in there. But it does work. And just one other thing to keep in mind as far as inventory, Gail, a lot of times, I mean, if you're ordering t-shirts and those types of things, you do get a pretty good discount for ordering. I mean, it's going to be more expensive to order just one-off stuff here and there, like by individual order.
Mhm.
So just keep that in mind too.
Okay, thank you. I'm just curious if anybody on the board has any experience with any vendors that would do like take our logo and build stuff. Just curious.
I have a lot of vendors I use, but I mean, you guys might know somebody local or something.
Okay.
I think a lot of that swag over time, Gail, was purchased,
Mhm.
for conference type things. I mean, I've got a couple Magip pint glasses. I mean, we had boxes of Magip pint glasses for the longest time. And I mean, I have one of those in my up in the kitchen, here. Yeah, when we did the conference, we just worked with the local company here in town to do it. So particularly just putting the logo on for the tote bags and things like that. But it seems like most of the swag is just whatever's left over from the various conferences. And I do know that when I was on the board, or last time I was on the board, I did it. We had an inventory of everything. Oh, Hillary's here now, or Hillary's always been here, I guess. But we had an inventory at one time of all the swag, but I think we finally got through all that, if I'm correct. Do you recall that, Megan? I think you remember that.
There's a little bit left. I don't know where it all is now.
Yeah, I still got some, and then I think Mike Powell's got the rest of it. So we still have an inventory, but we haven't updated it since our last conference in Billings. So
Okay. I would like to move this conversation along a little bit so we can get through the discussion and hopefully also give Jeff time to tell us about the conference locations. So Nate, do you want to go back to the budget?
Yeah. So the next item I have highlighted is lodging for board travel. And this includes lodging for our strategic retreat. And then this would most likely where we would have that bucket for supporting a board member to travel to another conference.
Did you add any additional funds to that bucket for the lodging for board members to represent at other conferences? Did you add any additional money to that, or did you leave it as what we did in the past for?
Yeah, so I left it at from what we had last year. With that, we did pay half of the lodging cost for the retreat this fall from last year's budget. And so we will have $500 extra to do something with. So I don't know if it would be best to kind of plan what we want to use that money for now, or if we should take that money out of the budget.
I think that we should move forward with the idea that we're going to need to have money there, even if we haven't defined what that need is yet.
Okay.
How does everybody else feel?
yeah,
I think it loops back to our early conversation, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely got to keep at least that in there.
And then can you add that additional 500, Nate?
Yes, yep. It's that additional 500 is included currently.
Ah,
so,
perfect. Awesome. Thank you. Okay.
All right. And then moving down to program expenses, GIS day, we have 175 budgeted again. This is what we budget every year to give out awards for the GIS day map contest. And then, yep, posters remaining the same. This is awards for posters during the conference. The K through 12.
Nate, real quick, so for that GIS day, I was looking at your other one that you had sent out that we did last year. And we only spent $50 out of that 175.
Correct. Yep. Yeah, so we did spend 175. But the individuals that received the awards haven't cashed their check yet. So
okay, gotcha. Thank you.
And then K through 12 education award. We have budgeted 3,000 this year, and this is what we've budgeted for the past 3 years too.
I think that's okay.
Right. And then requests for assistance. We have $575 budgeted. Last year we did not spend any of this. And this could possibly be where we could use funds from if we wanted to help get additional students to the conference.
Nate, I think, do we have, is there, I can't see it right now. Is there an item for meetups? Is there a line for meetups?
Yeah, yep, it's this one right here.
Okay, yeah, because it's usually the request for assistance that gets used to fund the meetup. But this is separate outside of meetups. That's good.
Correct, yep.
Yeah. And then, you know, I think it's good to have some money in there for whatever might come up. But I think we should consider, and we talk about this a lot, you know, having a budget component for all things related to, you know, education and, you know, scholarships, grants, students. And, you know, what we've been talking about at least recently is member education, right? So like this assistance could be a member who wants to attend a conference or a workshop, and maybe they get a 10% discount, right? And we can use some funds from this.
Yeah.
So I think all of that, I'd like to see that in sort of an education bucket.
Okay.
It's a whole other conversation, which we don't need to have now, but I'd like to introduce it.
Okay.
But yeah, thanks for pointing that out.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Right. And then this way, if we have like an education kind of a bucket, then so, you know, sponsors and things can choose to put money into that bucket. We can use it to support a variety of scholarship type activity.
Okay. Great. Yeah, and then under student travel, which could be maybe in that education bucket too. But
Yeah.
this is the budget item to fund the scholarship recipients to get to the conference.
Yeah, so this is something we talk about every year, and it's probably a good thing to put it in the budget, right? Because like, so for the education grant and for the higher education scholarship, one of the things we say is you get the $1,500 or, you know, whatever, 3,000 or whatever amount we allocate to that, however we split it up, you get that amount, plus we expect you to come and present at the conference, for which you will get a free registration and travel assistance, right? So you get $150 for travel if you got to go far distance, and you get the registration. So we need to bake that into the budget instead of having to be like, oh, well, that's an extra thing we have to come up with, right? So the scholarship is not just $3,000, it's 3,000, you know, 150 plus, you know, registration.
Yeah.
So,
and for this coming year, do you anticipate, how many, I guess, students would you anticipate needing to fund?
well, that comes in different forms, right? So for the higher education scholarship, we have $3,000, which if we have a lot of applicants, we might divide it into 3 $1,000 awards, right? So that would be an additional $450 for travel.
Yeah.
And then, you know, we similarly with the education grants, so that's 6 in total. Right, so that's 750.
Yeah,
that we would need for in addition to what we're putting in already, right? So those are the things to kind of think about there. So that's just our traditional stuff. If we're going to do this other thing, of inviting students, or, I would say we leave that on a request basis. Then we need to think about how much we want to put towards that.
I just would like to point out that it's 3 o'clock and I don't know if anybody needs to fall off.
I'm good here.
I'm good here for a few more minutes.
Okay. I do have a question, Nate. So it looks like if we approved going to Payne Wild Apricot, I think that's what that note is, taking into account 2-year payment to Wild Apricot. There's an additional $391 in the budget that hasn't been allocated. I would very much like to see that put into the assistance bucket. Unless others have an objection to that. That was definitely a place where we were struggling last year, and if we had extra funding, it would be nice to see it put in that bucket.
I'm 100% with you, Gail. I also think Rob's idea of maybe like restructuring the scholarship categories a little bit so it's all under one thing, and maybe that makes it a little more flexible if we need to shift funds from one area to another. We didn't have a ton. I don't, I'm new to this budget side of things, but I'm all about putting extra dollars towards assistance.
Okay, and just given our time constraints, and I know that the budget is really, really important, but I also think that, to Helen and Rob and Nate's point, restructuring that portion of our budget is really important. I would like to actually propose that we not approve the budget at this meeting, but that Nate makes the changes that we suggested, and that when we come to our August meeting, that we look at the new budget. If Nate could send it out a little early, we could all take a look at it, and we could approve it at the August meeting. I know that pushes our budget out a little bit in fiscal year 2025. I don't think that we have any expenses that are immediately due. If that's not the case, let me know. But how does everybody feel about that?
I like that idea.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, I don't think we really have a choice, so.
Yeah, okay. Nate, do you have the bandwidth to make those adjustments between now and August, and maybe get us like a draft form of what that would look like so that we can all take a look at it before the meeting? It looks like everything has been approved in the sense of like, yep, we've made these decisions. It just needs to be restructured so we can see what it looks like.
Okay, yeah, I can do that.
Okay. Mike? Did you have something?
No, I don't think, I mean, you said that you think it's approved. If nothing's approved yet, but yet, I mean, obviously, if we have to make a payment, we can make a payment still. I mean, it's not like we're like have no money here at all to do anything.
Yeah, sorry,
I'm-
I misspoke. I don't think that it's approved. I think everybody's in agreement, though, of all of the line items that Nate brought to our attention.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I am too. I mean,
Okay.
we can restructure the stuff would be a good idea. So.
Okay, and then we'll add it to the budget to the agenda to approve the budget at the August meeting. Rob, did you?
Yeah, just one thing to bring up before we leave the budget, and Nate, are we intending to, and can we execute soon if we are interested in the taking advantage of the high interest environment and purchasing another CD or some other vehicle of that nature?
Yeah, I think we should definitely do that. Yeah, interest rates are around that 4% range right now. And yeah, I think another 6-month CD would be a good idea. And last year we took out or put in $25,000. And I feel like this year we could do 35,000.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah, excellent.
Okay, so Hillary actually also brought up, should we take a quick vote on the CD? And I agree with that. So I'd like to make a motion to approve having Nate move $35,000 into a CD for 6 months. Is that correct, Nate?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
I,
Aye.
All right.
All opposed, say nay. Okay, so that's been approved. Awesome. Thank you. Okay, so it's 3:06 and there is actually one other item on the agenda that we haven't had the opportunity to talk about, and actually a couple. Jeff Hedstrom, the location, the update from MGAC, and just the request for assistance changes. That was something that Megan was going to work on. Is this something that we have time to move forward through? I want to make sure that we still have a quorum, and I don't want
This-
anybody to be left
This
out.
this can be pretty quick if folks want to stay on.
Yeah.
This can be pretty generalized too. I think the recommendation that I see fit for this is to approve setting the 2026 conference for the Kalispell and Whitefish region, and that will still allow us to further investigate these 3 hotels. The Hilton Garden is definitely a really good fit. It's just a matter of, tightening everything in and looking at the other 2 more closely as well. So
Okay.
but we had not had a conference there in 2012, or over a decade. And we have a pretty large membership there, so I think we owe it to this region to provide a conference there.
And Hillary has a good question in the chat. She asked if all of these provide the government rate.
I can speak to that somewhat. When I visited the Red Lion and the Hilton at the beginning of the year, they both seemed like if we were coming in April, they would be able to extend the government per diem rate. I have not talked to the Grouse Mountain about it yet, but when I previously got a proposal from Grouse Mountain for another organization, they were also willing to offer the government per diem rate.
Mhm.
So we don't have that obviously guaranteed, but when I initially spoke to them, they seemed to be flexible and willing to do that.
Yeah, well, and we didn't really have the government rate with the Northern, and I think if folks can either stay elsewhere or find the justification, because I think at the state library we had to justify a higher rate for our folks to essentially be able to stay there. So
Well, one, we did have the government rate for the Northern. They added $10 to their rate, which was still over $100 less than what they normally charge.
Mm-hmm.
And Michelle, I was just wondering if you had just a quick FYI on each one of these at all? On these 3? I mean, have you talked to the Grouse Mountain? Have you worked with any of these before? I just wanted your thoughts on, just quick thought, real quick.
I have done conferences at Grouse Mountain before, but it's been several years. So I haven't talked to them about this conference yet. And I did go visit the Red Lion and the Hilton and talk to both of their sales managers. Yeah, so.
And do you think, are they decent? Are they good? Or I'm just looking for your opinion on them.
Yeah, I mean, the feedback that I gave Jeff was their space is all a little different than what we're used to. The Hilton is probably closest to what we're used to, similar to the Northern, kind of one big room that breaks into different rooms. And then it's very new and updated. The Red Lion is pretty old and outdated. It's not dirty, but it is pretty old. And their meeting room space is kind of laid out weird. And the Grouse Mountain, their meeting rooms again are pretty spread out. From what I remember, are pretty spread out into kind of different areas. So I think all 3 facilities could work. but the Hilton Garden Inn was definitely like the newest and most updated.
I
Yeah,
think another thing to consider, I mean, the Grouse Mountain, that's the lodge up at the hill, right?
No, it's not too far from town. It's just
Is
kind of
it
right
right by
outside.
the
it's
lake there with the bridge going across the road?
no, that's the
That's the Whitefish Lake Lodge.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just thinking that, if the point is to get people out into the town and stuff, yeah, it's being centralized. The location of these is probably important too, depending on what
Yeah.
else we want to do there.
Yeah, Grouse Mountain's right on their golf course there in Whitefish, and it's maybe a mile or two from town, and they do have a free shuttle that takes people to and from downtown.
Yep.
The Hilton is kind of right as you're going into Kalispell.
Yep.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's a
yeah.
little ways out too.
Yeah.
And then the
Yeah.
Red Lion is kind of right
Yeah.
in the middle.
Yeah, I mean, this is the difficult part there, Rob, is like, I
Yeah.
think the Hilton is like the best fit for our conference, but it's not best fit for the location. So you kind of have to take one with the other, and kind of like where we've had some of our conferences before, especially like here in Helena, we're nowhere near downtown, and we're kind of just gonna have to make it work. So
Yeah, no, I am familiar with the Hilton. I've stayed there for work, and there ain't shit to do there. There's like the steakhouse across the way, and that's it.
yeah, but a lot of times we can talk to the driver for the shuttle, and they can essentially shuttle people. I know that's what they did for Great Falls. We're able to shuttle people to downtown to venture out. So
Yeah, well, which town? There, right? You're halfway between Kalispell and Whitefish,
yeah,
and you're in like, shopping mall land. But yeah, like you said, we'll make do, but I wouldn't pay a premium for it. That's for sure.
You
Okay, so
know-
there was a request. I'm sorry, go ahead, Helen.
Oh, I was gonna follow on Rob's comment about a premium. Is there a price difference between these three? I know you were mentioning looking into the government rate, but in terms of like actual conference space rental and all that, do we have any feel for is Red Line gonna be half of the Hilton cost? Because, that's a factor.
Yeah, I think they're pretty comparable, actually. I think that,
Yeah.
well, the Hilton, I think right now is quoted 1,800 for the big ballroom. Yeah, we just, until we send our RFP to them and get quotes, it's really hard to know.
yeah. So like this action could essentially just kind of narrow our focus down, and then we can come back with a contract 2 months from now. So I mean, I think I think we'd be ready to at least designate Kalispell Whitefish, and then we can kind of narrow in further down that. That's what we've done in the past. With some of the other places. Some of them are obvious, like Helena. It's really only one hotel, but
Yeah.
But so if you guys
Okay.
feel that designate this region, we can certainly come back in a couple months with a better offer, contract wise. So.
I think it's a great idea to have it in the Kalispell Whitefish region.
Okay, so I'm going to propose a recommended action to approve the 2026 conference site to be within the Kalispell Whitefish region. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right.
All right.
All okay, all opposed, say nay. Okay, so moved. So the 2026 conference will be in the Kalispell Whitehall region, and Jeff will continue to work with Michelle to get those RFPs. And actually, I would like to ask if you get them before the next meeting, it would be really great to be able to just email them out to everybody so that we can take a look at them, just so that we know what we're looking for. Thank you, Jeff. And Michelle, I know that's a heavy lift getting that done. So it is 3:15. If we still have a quorum, I'd like to ask Eric Spingenberg to give us an update on the MGAC meeting that was an in-person working meeting last week.
Well, anything I miss, you can fill in, Gail. Let's see here. I mean, we just had the standing reports. They had a pretty interesting little discussion regarding how the whole state appropriations process works in terms of how where the legislature says, here's what your authority is, here's what you get appropriated, then that's basically what you have the authority to spend, and all that kind of fun stuff. I didn't get the dashboard. I know that there's a dashboard out there for locals to be able to see what the collections are for their various communities in terms of the local collections for things. It's just right now, revenue is still trending downward in terms of the estimates and the projections for the filing fees for the MGIA funding side of things. So there's discussion on their end of what's going to be the core to their work going forward. How are they going to reprioritize grants to fund, and what side projects that they have that they might be funding. So just more to follow, more to come on that one. I don't know, Gail, if you had any more to add to that one, but yeah, that was just an update because there's a number of new council members. Speaking of that, they did introduce us. Brian DeMarco is the new tribal representative. He actually works for telecom up in that area. And then Joe Kaufman is the representative for Marls. I think the council website's been updated with their contact and their information. So I think there's still one opening left, and I think that might be from the private business side of things, if I recall. Don't quote me on that though. I'd have to go to I don't have their page open right now. So let's see, strategic planning. There's still some work going on there. If you take a look at the agenda for the state library, for the council, there are hyperlinks in the agenda that will take you to their business plans, and they're getting ready to take a look at the next steps for running the geospatial data standard. They're looking at maybe running addressing to be their first theme that they give a test run on for developing a data standard. Now, mind you, it's a data standard for the state library. It's not a data standard that they're going to make everyone follow, but it's one that they're hoping Magip will be appreciative of and see how the steps follow in terms of creating a standard for in this case the addressing theme, but for any of the data themes. But it's something to look at. There's a report on the state reference network. That's the subscription-based one. Where the future funding on that, again, that has a link on the agenda, so that if you want to see that. Let's see, grant funding was let's see, there was that discussion, not much more there. Again, financial report, you can look at the fourth quarter financial report from the standing reports on the council's agenda. And then good news, some other things from the GIS coordinators report, from Aaron's report. So the National States Geographic Information Council, NSGIC, she's been on that board for a member of that for a long time. She finally convinced NSGIC to have the NSGIC conference in Montana. So they will be bringing it. It's going to be here the first week in November 2026. And it's going to be at I don't know, I wrote Kimpton/Armory. It's downtown Bozeman. So
and they got the government rate.
That conference will be in Montana the first week of November. So there is that. And then let's see, communication, Mako, Esri in town. Esri is going to be in town in October for their typical state meeting. I don't know if anything's going to happen there. And that was basically the end of the official business meeting. We did adjourn then for lunch, and post lunch in the afternoon, we had a work session to start talking more about the advisory council's work sessions and what our goals and who we want to see as an audience for our establishing the new information plan and the metrics of success. Quite honestly, you know, we went on through things and we had some good discussion, but it came back. I mean, really, what we've got written in the current land plans and things like that, it just seemed like the processes and the steps that they're following for those are, you know, we're seeing success with those. And so there wasn't a whole, other than rehashing that same old things, I think things are going to kind of stay status with developing those land plans. Okay, we'll see you, Jason. So
Thank you.
Just some metrics. They wanted to figure out how they know resources, money, save time in terms of whether they're successful certain measures. I don't know, Gail, if you have anything else you'd want to add to that side of things, but my notes on the work session were a little bit lacking because, well, I just didn't take much. I just gave my comments and that was about it. So
No, that was great. You did a great job of recapping. I would just add one additional thing, and that is that Erin is concerned about having these documents and nobody looking at them. So when she gets to a point that she has a document that needs to be reviewed, she and I talked about setting up some work sessions and maybe getting some funding through Magip, and through the Magip membership having meetups to go over those documents so that she can get more feedback. It's very frustrating to spend, you know, a year or 2 years working on a document and then not get anybody to read it. Plus it's very, I think it's appropriate that Magip put these documents in front of the GIS community to get feedback. So that would be the only thing that I would add to it. And before we lose our quorum, I think the request for assistance changes, Megan, that there's no action required on that. It was just a request whether or not it was done. Does anybody have any questions for Eric? Questions? Okay. All right. I have an entire like pad of Post-it notes with notes of things to do, to take away. So appreciate your time. So if there are no additional questions for Eric, we will adjourn the meeting.
all right, well, thank you. Just in time I can join the 3:30 session for
Just in time for the 3D LiDAR one?
no, I'm
We're
probably
only
going to
23 minutes over. I appreciate your time.
There's an architectural patterns and practices for ArcGIS AGOL and ArcGIS Enterprise.
I saw that one too. Have fun.
That's
Fill me
awesome.
in.
Yeah, 3D working with LiDAR. I'm tempted to do that. I may just join it and grab and download the PDF.
I know. I'm
have
gonna join it, but I like have to call somebody else too. So who knows if I'll actually listen.
All right.
I'm gonna
Okay.
stop the
Good
video. Okay.
Thank you guys.
Everybody.
See everyone.
Looking forward to
all.
seeing all of the
Yep.
emails going back and forth, and we'll see you in a month.
Yeah, have fun at
Bye.
the UC, everyone. Bye.
Bye.